If you love emotional true stories that touch your heart and change the way you see life, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. These stories aren't just for entertainment, they're reminders of love, sacrifice, and hope. Stay till the end because this story will stay with you long after the video ends. I still remember the first time I heard about her. It wasn't from the news and it wasn't from a book. It was whispered between neighbors, spoken quietly like something sacred, something fragile. They didn't even say her name at first. They just said, that grandma, the one who never gave up. Her name was Evelyn Carter and she lived in a small, fading town where most people were either too busy surviving or too tired to dream. Her house stood at the very end of a cracked road, paint peeling, porch leaning slightly to the left. Wind chimes rusted but still singing whenever the breeze passed through. It looked like a house that had lived 1,000 lives, just like the woman inside it. Evelyn was 78 years old, but age never defined her, life did. Her hands were thin, veins visible like rivers on a map, each one carrying a memory. When she smiled, her face folded into lines that told stories no words could fully explain. And when she looked at you, she really looked as if she could see the child you once were and the wounds you tried to hide. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, Evelyn would sit by her kitchen window with a cup of weak coffee and a slice of bread. She carefully divided in half. One half she ate, the other half she wrapped in a napkin and slipped into her coat pocket. No one asked why anymore. They already knew. Years ago, her life had been loud. Laughter filled her home back then. The sound of children running, dishes clattering, music playing on an old radio. Her husband, Thomas, used to dance with her in the living room, stepping on her feet and apologizing every time, making her laugh until her sides hurt. One day, he would say, holding her close, "We'll grow old together and complain about everything." They didn't get that future. Thomas died suddenly one winter morning, his heart giving out while shoveling snow for a neighbor. Evelyn found out from a knock on the door. She remembered the officer's lips moving, but the words didn't make sense at first. Later, she would replay that moment again and again, wishing she had said something different. Wishing she had hugged Thomas harder the night before. Grief hollowed her. But life didn't stop asking things from her. Her daughter, Margaret, struggled. Addiction came quietly, then loudly, then violently. Some nights Margaret would promise she was getting better. Other nights she wouldn't come home at all. Evelyn stayed awake every night, sitting in the same chair, praying to a God she was angry at but still believed in. "Please," she whispered once, tears soaking her sleeves, "don't take my child too." But addiction doesn't listen to prayers. When Margaret passed away, it felt like the world finally broke. Two small children were left behind, Lily, only 6, and Noah, barely 3. They clung to Evelyn at the funeral, confused, scared, asking when mommy would wake up. Evelyn didn't have answers. She only had arms, and she wrapped them around those children as tightly as she could. Her quiet house was suddenly filled with new sounds, the patter of little feet, the hushed sobs in the middle of the night, the endless questions. Lily would draw pictures of their mother with wings, while Noah would sit by the window waiting for her to come back. Evelyn became their world. She learned to braid hair again, helped with homework, and told them stories about their grandpa Thomas, painting him as a superhero who could build anything. Her social security check barely covered the bills, but she was resourceful. She started a small garden, growing vegetables. She mended old clothes until they were more patched than fabric. That extra slice of bread she packed every morning, it wasn't for her. She'd give it to an old man who sat on a bench downtown, another soul forgotten by the rush of the world. She taught her grandchildren kindness not by lecture but by example. One day, Lily came home from school crying. A classmate had made fun of her worn-out shoes. Evelyn held her granddaughter and felt a familiar ache in her chest. That evening, she didn't eat her half of the bread. She sold her late husband's wedding ring, the last piece of him she owned, and bought Lily a new pair of shoes. She tucked them by her bed while she slept. The next morning, Lily's gasp of joy was worth more than any gold. Years passed. Lily and Noah grew up, surrounded by a love so fierce it shielded them from the worst of the world. Lily became a nurse, compassionate and kind, just like her grandmother. Noah became a carpenter, strong and steady, just like the grandfather he only knew from stories. They tried to convince Evelyn to move in with them, to let them take care of her, but she'd just smile and shake her head. "This house holds our memories," she'd say. "It's where I can still feel all of you." Evelyn's story isn't one of grand gestures or public recognition. It is a quiet testament to the strength found in love and the resilience of the human heart. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who simply refuse to give up, who keep lighting a candle in the darkest of rooms, one day at a time. At an age when most people slow down, Evelyn started over. She sold her wedding ring to buy bunk beds. She learned how to pack lunches again, how to help with homework she barely understood, how to read bedtime stories even when her voice cracked halfway through. Some nights she cried in the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear. Other nights she held them until they fell asleep, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Money was always short. The town's grocery store clerk knew her by name and sometimes pretended the register miscounted, letting Evelyn walk away with an extra loaf of bread. Evelyn always said thank you, her eyes shining with gratitude and embarrassment. But here's the part of the story most people didn't know. Every afternoon, after her own grandkids were at school, Evelyn walked 3 blocks past her own struggles to the local bus stop. She sat there quietly, just waiting. Eventually, a boy would arrive, Marcus. He was 12. Skinny, angry at the world, carrying more weight in his heart than any child should. His mother worked double shifts, his father was gone. Some days, Marcus didn't eat at all. Evelyn never asked questions, she simply handed him a sandwich, sometimes with peanut butter, sometimes with a piece of fruit she'd saved all week. You're growing, she'd say gently, growing. Boys need fuel. Marcus always pretended not to care, but he ate every single bite. Over time, one child at the bus stop became 2, 2 became 5. Word spread quietly through the neighborhood. Kids who needed somewhere to sit, somewhere safe, somewhere warm. Evelyn's front porch became that place. She listened to stories about school bullies, broken homes, and empty refrigerators. She didn't judge, she didn't lecture, she just listened. One day, her own granddaughter, Lily, asked her, "Grandma, why do you help everyone when we don't have much?" Evelyn knelt down, brushing Lily's hair back from her face. "Because, sweetheart," she said softly, "having little doesn't mean having nothing." Those words became the center of her life. Years passed. The house aged. Evelyn's back hurt more. Some days she needed help just to stand up. But she never stopped showing up, rain or shine, summer heat or winter cold. That bus stop, that porch, those kids, they gave her purpose when life had taken so much away. What Evelyn didn't know was that people were watching, not out of pity, out of respect. And one cold afternoon, as she sat alone at the bus stop, waiting with a familiar napkin in her pocket, something unexpected was about to happen, something that would remind her and all of us that kindness, no matter how small, never truly disappears. The cold that afternoon was sharper than usual, the kind that crawled under your coat and settled right into your bones. Evelyn felt it in her knees as she lowered herself onto the bus stop bench. She rubbed her hands together, her breath fogging the air, and checked her pocket. The napkin was there, neatly folded, holding a piece of bread and the last apple from a bag she'd bought days ago. It had a soft spot, but she'd carefully cut it off. Waste was a luxury she couldn't afford. The street was quieter than normal. School had let out early because of a burst pipe, and Evelyn worried she might miss some of the kids. She hated that feeling, the idea of a child waiting somewhere, hungry, while she sat uselessly on a bench. She stood up slowly, leaning on her cane, scanning the empty street. "Mrs. Carter," the voice came from behind her. She turned to see a young woman, her face pale and her eyes red, but not from the cold. "Yes," Evelyn said gently. The woman swallowed hard. "My name is Rachel. I've been trying to catch you for days." Evelyn tilted her head, steadying her face. "Have we met, dear?" Rachel shook her head. "No. But you know my son, Marcus." Something softened in Evelyn's chest. "Marcus," she said with a small smile. "He's a good boy." Rachel's shoulders dropped as if a great weight had been lifted. "He talks about you all the time. About how you wait here. About the food. About how you listen." Her voice cracked. "I didn't believe him at first." Evelyn just waved her hand lightly. "Oh, I just do what I can." Rachel stepped closer. "I lost my job last month. I've been trying to keep it together, but some nights we don't have enough. Marcus never told me. He didn't want me to worry." Tears slipped down her cheeks now. "But he comes home fuller on days he sees you happier." Evelyn reached out, placing her hand over Rachel's cold fingers. "You're doing your best," she said. "That's all any of us can do." Just then, the bus pulled up and Marcus jumped down the steps. He froze when he saw his mother. His eyes darted from Evelyn to Rachel. "Mom," Rachel knelt and hugged him tightly. "You didn't tell me about Mrs. Carter," she whispered. Marcus's voice was small. "I didn't want you to feel bad." Evelyn crouched down as best she could. "You never have to hide kindness," she told him. "It multiplies when you share it." That night, Evelyn went home feeling lighter than she had in years. Later, as she was washing dishes, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to a man holding a camera and a woman with a notebook. "Mrs. Evelyn Carter?" the man asked. "My name is Daniel. I work with a local community outreach group. We've heard some stories about you." Evelyn sighed, thinking they were there to stop her. "If you're here to tell me I can't give food to children, I'm afraid you're too late." Daniel just smiled. "Actually, we're here to listen." They sat at her kitchen table, and Evelyn told them pieces of her story. She talked about the kids, but left out the nights she went hungry herself, and the constant pain she ignored. When she finished, Daniel asked quietly, Do you know how many lives you've touched? Evelyn just shrugged. I never counted. A week later, a short video appeared online. It showed Evelyn laughing, handing snacks to children. It showed Marcus talking about how she saved his afternoons. It showed her own granddaughter saying, "My grandma helps everyone." Evelyn didn't even know it existed, but the world found it. Within days, letters began arriving. Some had $5 tucked inside, others had long, handwritten notes. One said, "My grandmother was like you. Thank you for reminding me who I want to be." Another said, "I was hungry once. Someone helped me. Now I'm paying it forward." Then, packages started coming. Blankets, canned food, school supplies. Evelyn cried every time she opened the door, not from sadness, but from seeing her small act of kindness returned 1,000 times over. At first, all the attention was a bit frightening. Evelyn didn't want praise or to be called special. "I'm just a grandma," she confessed to Daniel during one of his check-in calls. "Exactly," he replied warmly. "And the world needs more of you." The kids at the bus stop noticed the changes too. A new bench, built by an anonymous neighbor, appeared on her porch. Beside it sat a box labeled "Help Yourself," filled with snacks. Evelyn made sure everyone took only what they needed, teaching a quiet lesson in sharing. One afternoon, little Lily sat beside her and whispered, "Grandma, are you famous now?" Evelyn chuckled, pulling her closer. "Oh no, sweetheart, I'm just seen, but not all attention is gentle." One morning, a crisp envelope arrived from the city: complaints, zoning issues, concerns about safety. Someone had officially reported the gatherings of children at her home. Evelyn's hands trembled as she read the cold, bureaucratic words. An old, familiar fear crept in. The same kind she felt when she used to wait up late for her daughter, Margaret, to come home. She imagined the porch empty again, the children turned away, the silence returning. That evening, she sat alone, the letter folded and unfolded a dozen times, the creases deepening like wrinkles on her hand. Noah, ever perceptive, noticed her silence. "Are you sad, Grandma?" he asked. She pulled him into a hug. "Just a little tired, sweet boy." The next day, before Evelyn could even decide what to do, something incredible happened. People started showing up, first a few, then a dozen. Then a crowd, parents, teachers, neighbors she'd only ever waved to. They stood on the sidewalk holding handmade signs. "Thank you," one read. "Kindness lives here," declared another. Marcus was right at the front, holding his mother's hand and beaming. Just then, a woman from the city pulled up in her car, her expression a mixture of confusion and awe as she took in the scene. With her heart pounding a rhythm of disbelief and hope, Evelyn stepped onto her porch. She didn't have to say a word. The crowd, her community, was saying it all for her. That night, Evelyn sat at her window again, her coffee long since cooled. She thought of Thomas. She thought of Margaret. She thought of the long, winding road that had brought her to this very moment. Yes, she was tired, but she was also full. Her heart was full. And deep down, in a place that had once been hollow, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. The morning light crept softly through the thin curtains, landing on Evelyn's face as she slept in her chair. Exhaustion had finally won. But the letter from the city, still folded on the table, no longer felt quite so heavy, not after what she had seen. When she woke, her joints ached as usual. She smiled through it, whispering, all right," to her own body, like an old friend who complained a bit too much. From the kitchen came the clinking of dishes. Lily was already up, trying and failing to be quiet. "Grandma," she said, noticing Evelyn was awake. "You should have seen it. People kept coming by this morning. They left bread and milk. And a note." Evelyn's heart fluttered. A note. Lily handed it to her carefully. The handwriting was a child's, uneven and full of heart. It said, "When I grow up, I want to be like you." Evelyn pressed the paper to her chest, unable to speak. Later that day, the city representative returned, but this time, her posture wasn't stiff. She sat at the kitchen table and listened. "We're not here to stop this," she said finally. "We're here to support it, safely, legally." Evelyn blinked. "You mean the kids, they can stay?" The woman replied, "And we're arranging a small community grant, nothing big, just enough to help." Tears slipped freely down Evelyn's face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was so afraid." The woman's voice was gentle. "I know, but you're not alone anymore." Word spread like wildfire. A retired carpenter fixed her porch completely. A teacher started tutoring the kids in the afternoons. A nurse stopped by weekly to check on Evelyn, scolding her lovingly for not resting enough. "I'm still useful," she'd insist, waving them off, and she was. One afternoon, a boy named Marcus stayed behind. He shuffled his feet, hands stuffed in his pockets. "Mrs. Carter," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I got into a school program." Her face lit up. "That's wonderful. It's for kids who want to go to college," he continued. They said someone wrote about me, about how I help the younger kids, about how I show up." Evelyn smiled knowingly. Kindness has a way of speaking for us. Marcus swallowed hard. I learned that from you. As the seasons changed, Evelyn felt time moving faster. Some days her chest ached, and she had to sit more. She never complained, but the children noticed. They started bringing her things. Without being asked, a blanket, a glass of water. Their small hands had learned care early. One evening, a thunderstorm knocked out the power. Evelyn lit a candle and gathered the children close. Tell us again, a small voice said, about Grandpa. Evelyn's eyes reflected the candlelight. He used to say life was a borrowed thing, that we don't own our days. We just decide how to spend them. Weeks later, Evelyn collapsed quietly at the bus stop. She woke in a hospital room. The steady beeping a stark contrast to the sounds of her home. The doctor spoke gently. Her heart was tired. They talked about rest, about slowing down. Evelyn nodded, but her thoughts were on the porch, the kids, the bench. When she returned home, she couldn't sit on the porch for long, so the kids came inside instead. They sat on the floor, on cushions, on the steps, and they brought her their stories now. Good grades, bad days, first crushes, big dreams. Evelyn listened. One quiet afternoon, she called Lily and Noah to her side. I won't always be here the way I am now, she said softly. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Don't say that, Evelyn brushed her cheek. Listen to me. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. Promise me you'll notice people, especially the quiet ones. Evelyn passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, a smile on her face. The town gathered for her funeral, more people than anyone expected. They didn't talk about what Evelyn lacked. They talked about what she gave. The bus stop bench is still there today. A small plaque rests on it now. It reads, having little doesn't mean having nothing, and every afternoon, without fail, someone leaves food there.